Today we have this beautiful exposition of Eucharist. In the Gospel of John, there is no account of the Last Supper. And so in John's 6th chapter, he gives us the account of the generosity of God through his Son, that in the Eucharist none of us will be hungry. That through the gift of his Son, in giving us his body and his blood, that none of us will want for his presence in our lives. We are given that privilege of receiving the Lord, of taking him into our bodies to become one with him as he becomes one with us. But the history here is that Jesus was teaching the people. My grandmother, whenever we traveled, never had an empty handbag. She always had her pocketbook, as we called it, full of crackers and biscuits, homemade. When we went on vacation, she would always make sure that we had massa cevada, Portuguese sweetbread, hard-boiled eggs, and a percolator so that she could make coffee, because we never went out for breakfast. We always ate breakfast in the hotel, all together. The aunts, the uncles, the parents, the cousins, and Vavo, grandmother. She always prepared well when she went on a journey, and she always gave willingly. I remember coming out of the Easter Vigil, and she said, "Walter, thanks for home. Walter, are you hungry?" Of course, I was always hungry. She said, "Walter, are you hungry?" And she'd give me a biscuit, and went to my cousin and my sister and all of us who were there, because she had been fasting since Friday. Of course, we probably had something even though we were supposed to have fasted. But that's matter for a confessional, I suppose. At any rate, she never went unprepared. We hear the story of Jesus' generosity, and he knew what he was doing from the beginning. He knew that there was a young boy there with 5 barley loaves. Barley was the bread of the poor. It's not this great, wonderful Portuguese sweetbread, but it was the food that the poor would recognize. The fish obviously were something that were bountiful in the Galilee because it was right on the Lake Gennesaret. And so he took these 2 items, the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and he blessed them and gave them to be distributed. And the people ate, and they were filled to satisfaction, and there were 12 baskets left. Such is the generosity of God. And so I can't imagine that the people seeing this generosity of God in the person of Jesus, who they call the prophet, the one who is coming into the world, who we know better as our Savior, that they wouldn't have opened their pocketbooks. They had probably come from market, were tired, they were preparing to go home, and all of a sudden, these 5,000 men, so you can imagine that there were at least 12,000 people there, because there are always more women listening to Jesus than men. And so they all gathered there. And when they saw Jesus giving of himself through his blessing, I like to think that they opened up and started sharing with each other until the bread arrived and they shared that. But Jesus opened their hearts, didn't he? As he opens our hearts here at the table, here at the Word, when he gives himself to us in generosity. We celebrate this year the year of mercy, a gift from Pope Francis, an extraordinary jubilee of mercy, to remind us how merciful and generous and loving God is, and how that challenges us to be merciful and generous with our brothers and sisters. And so as Jesus gives us himself, he says, open your hearts, open your pockets and your pocketbooks, and give generously to your brothers and sisters, that all may know my love and yours through me.